Sasebo, southwestern Japan. Today I'm taking you to this peaceful little port town surrounded by mountains and steeped in centuries-old traditions. It's June 1st, 2004, in an elementary school just like any other. Children are drawing, laughing, getting ready for lunch. The school year is almost over, and nothing seems likely to disturb this ordinary morning. And yet, at 12:20 p.m. in an empty classroom, a tragedy unfolds behind closed doors. When the bell rings, two students don't show up for roll call. A supervisor grows concerned and decides to search the school after all. Both girls were present that same morning. She looks for a good 15 minutes until she reaches the last classroom. She opens the door and discovers the unthinkable. One of the two 12-year-old girls is lying on the floor, her throat slashed, lying in a pool of blood. What she doesn't know yet is that the killer is still there, and it's neither a stranger nor an armed adult. What happened within these walls? What led a young schoolgirl to lose her life so violently? Was it a teenage argument, a moment of revenge, a sudden breakdown, or something far deeper, far more chilling? Today we look back on one of the most baffling crimes in modern Japan, a case that shocked an entire nation and triggered a countrywide debate on youth violence. You're listening to a true story, a painfully true one, and what you're about to hear might just chill you to the bone. It all begins in Sasebo, a small coastal town in southern Japan, stretching along the inland sea, lulled by the murmur of fishing boats and the monotonous song of cicadas. Here, between the mountains and military ports, time seems to move slower than anywhere else. In the clean streets lined with red-roofed houses, the smell of sticky rice mixes with the salty sea air. It's the start of summer, 2004. The days are already heavy with heat, but the children still run through schoolyards, carefree. At Okubo Elementary School, on the morning of June 1st, pencils slide across notebooks. Laughter bursts out, echoing off the white walls before vanishing beneath the blue sky. In classroom 2B, students carefully fold their things. The bell rings. Dozens of little backpacks bump against each other. Doors slam. Children rush down the hallways, leaving behind a brief silence. But in room 2B, two girls remain behind. They're friends. One of them quietly gets up to close the door. The outside light filters through the blinds, casting pale stripes on the floor. Then nothing. When the supervisor walks through the cafeteria, she notices the two girls are missing. That's when she begins to search for them. After a few minutes, she stops in front of room 2B, the classroom where the girls and their classmates usually study. 12:25 p.m. The hallway is deserted. From behind the slightly open door, the smell of blood rises sharp, metallic, almost sweet. Her scream pierces the sticky calm of the school. And just like that, the innocence of Sasebo vanishes in an instant. At the center of the room lies Satomi Mitarai, 12 years old on her side, arms stretched out in front of her, as if she tried to crawl. Just a few steps away, the other girl is still holding a box cutter in her hand. You've understood by now she's the one who committed this horrific crime. The blade faintly reflects the cold light from the ceiling. It's not my blood. It wasn't me. The girl, because that's still what she is, a child, remains standing, legs stiff, head slightly tilted, as if listening for something no one else can hear. The cutter slips from her fingers. It's 12:40 p.m. Room 2B is sealed off. Local police storm the school, their navy blue uniforms flooding the entrance. They examine the body and confirm the death. Outside, chaos erupts. Teachers try to hold back the students, calm the parents now arriving in a panic, tipped off by frantic phone calls. In a room at the back of the building, a little girl sits on a white plastic chair, guilty, as if she'd just gotten into a fight with a friend. A school doctor enters to examine the child. He rummages through his kit, steps forward to check on the young killer. Of course, she doesn't resist. Not at all. Just the faintest flinch, barely noticeable when the cold stethoscope touches her temple. No tears, no visible emotion, an empty shell. A terrible truth is beginning to emerge. The killer is a sixth-grade student. She's barely 11 years old and her name is Natsumi Tsuji. At this point, the media still refers to her only as Girl A. No name in the press, no official photo. But behind that legal anonymity, there is a face. Born in 1992, right here in Sasebo, she is the second daughter of a quiet, unremarkable family. Her father works as a civil servant. Her mother is a stay-at-home mom, caring, loving, sometimes a bit too focused on academic success. She grows up in a modest house, nothing luxurious, where rules are clear and politeness is second nature. At school, Natsumi Tsuji is a top student. She gets good grades, joins every activity, the basketball team, the art club, extra Saturday math lessons. She's described as cheerful, curious, sometimes lively, sometimes dreamy. Just an ordinary little girl, or so it seems. Her teachers notice a kind of perfectionism in her, a deep, almost desperate need to please, to never disappoint. She always turns in her homework ahead of time. Her notebooks are immaculate, titles underlined in red, margins precisely measured. Even her mistakes are crossed out neatly, as if even imperfection must remain clean. One day in science class, she gets a 19 out of 20. She looks at the grade at the top of the page, then quietly changes it with a pencil. She makes it a 20. I don't understand why I lost a point. I read the question 3 times. It's not arrogance, it's polite panic. When one of her classmates scores higher on a math test, she says nothing. But she goes home, locks herself in her room, and rewrites the entire test on a clean sheet, line by line. Her father often finds her crying silently in front of her calculator. But when he asks what's wrong, she always says, nothing. I'm fine. During rehearsals for the end-of-year play, she corrects the others' movements, adjusts their steps, even memorizes their lines. She rehearses until she's exhausted not to shine, but to avoid failing. Her friends say that Natsumi could change moods in an instant. One moment, laughing and whispering secrets. The next, cold stares and silence. One day at recess, she laughs hysterically when a classmate trips in the sand. 5 minutes later, when that same friend teases her about her worn-out backpack, Natsumi's face goes blank. She turns her head and says nothing. She could hug a friend warmly in the morning, lend her favorite marker, and then ignore her completely that same afternoon for no clear reason. It's as if something deep inside her would take over. Some defense mechanism stronger than logic. A wounded ego that knew neither how to retreat nor how to forgive. You might say, that's normal. Kids are like that. Yes, but not when vengeance comes with a box cutter. Investigators discover that, by age 11, Natsumi was already exploring the early days of the internet. A fascinating world where anonymity gave her a sense of power. Under a childish nickname, she chatted with classmates on school forums. At first, it was all innocent fun. Then came sharper words. One day, Satomi Midorai criticized her. A fatal mistake. Just a word. Just a cruel nickname. Fat. Slow. A taunt like any other. Like the ones that echo through classrooms everywhere. But not for Natsumi. For her, it was a wound that would never heal. She began to withdraw, fixated on the humiliation she felt, imagining scenarios where she'd take control again. Over time, her reading habits changed. She moved on from fantasy manga to darker stories. Tales of vengeful ghosts, of bullied students driven to madness. At school, no one saw the storm brewing. Her polite smile hid it all. Her parents, worried about her growing silence, blamed the stress of exams. After all, soon she'd need to pass entrance tests for a good middle school. But the girl, she was quietly nurturing a plan. Simple, precise, and above all, fatal. A few days before the tragedy, she walked into a downtown stationery shop. She picked up a silver-bladed box cutter and slipped it between her books. At home, no one noticed. And when the morning of June 1st arrived, Natsumi tucked the object into her school bag. We now know what it was used for. Of course, even as a minor, there's no exception here. Natsumi is taken into police custody immediately. Time for the interrogation. Sitting in front of the investigators, the little girl never lowers her eyes. Why? A moment of silence. Only the hum of the air conditioner. Because she made fun of me. Because she hurt me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The girl calmly describes, without anger in her voice, the steps of her plan. How she chose the moment, the empty room, how she pulled out the cutter with a sure hand, how Satomi didn't even have time to understand. She didn't scream. One of the inspectors scribbles on his notepad, pauses, and stares at the girl. She adjusts her uniform, smooths the pleats on her skirt, as if she were about to return to class. Well, as for the confession, the police have what they need. But one question remains. The motive seems too small, and the crime too big, for a simple insult to be the root of it all. When the psychiatrists enter the room, the child does not react. No fear, no mistrust. Just that cold, disarming stillness. The first psychiatric report quickly makes a troubling observation. No clear mental illness. No signs of delirium. No major impairment of consciousness at the time of the act. Which makes things more complicated and certainly doesn't help her case. What they do observe is that she is intelligent, lucid, but emotionally disconnected. She is capable of describing everything she did in detail without showing any real empathy for the victim. No empathy, that's the key word. And if you want the scientific term, here's the one that appears in every report: alexithymia. It's the inability to recognize your own emotions, to name them, to tame them, which means that beneath the surface of a model student, there was a growing emotional void, one that remained invisible. In her case, there's no sign of abuse. Her parents are not divorced. She was never beaten. That only adds more confusion to the case. Usually, these are the kinds of factors that create killers. But in Natsumi's case, nothing fits. She's no different from any other child her age except for her constant need to succeed. A soft pressure, never spoken aloud, but always present. She just wants to be perfect and never fail. But Satomi's mocking shattered that image. It exposed a hidden flaw she was trying to keep buried. So rather than face shame, she chose the most radical solution: to silence humiliation once and for all. That, then, is the motive for the murder. Simple, and yet tragically true. Natsumi is, of course, taken into custody. She spends the night at the police station, often crying, refusing to eat or drink. The next day, during another interview, she reveals that she and Mitarai were once close friends, but that their relationship had deteriorated and ended after posts exchanged on the school chat site, Cafesta, now offline. Girl A claims that Mitarai slandered her by commenting on her weight and calling her useless. This had been going on for a long time. It wasn't just a one-off insult she had fixated on, it was a hatred that had been fed for weeks. According to her, Mitarai had been asking for it. But now a terrible dilemma arises for the justice system: punish or protect. Let's not forget, Natsumi is still a child. A criminal, yes, but a child nonetheless. So what do you do with an 11-year-old killer? In Japan, the age of criminal responsibility starts at 14. The girl cannot be tried in criminal court. She won't have a criminal record and won't be judged as an adult. The Nagasaki family court rules: she will be placed in a specialized education center, initially for 2 years. That period will be extended for another 2 years after a thorough psychological evaluation. There will be no public trial for Natsumi, no face-to-face with Satomi's family. Only experts, educators, and psychiatrists tasked with repairing what can still be repaired. Meanwhile, Japanese society erupts. Some people slam their fists on tables. Some shout, 11 or not, she knew exactly what she was doing. You have to be a monster to slit a girl's throat. Others call for calm. She's a child, a sick child. In the courthouse hallways, the air is so heavy you could cut it with a knife. Quickly, the case goes beyond Sasebo. National newspapers make front-page headlines about the elementary school murder. Talk shows catch fire. Educational experts compete with shallow analysis. But it's online that the tragedy takes a strange turn. One day, a class photo leaks. In it, a little girl sits in the front row, wearing an oversized sweatshirt with the word Nevada across it. Her face, officially blurred, is instantly recognized by thousands of internet users. A nickname is born, cruel and absurd, NevadaTan. Drawings, songs, memes soon follow. September 15, 2004. Despite her young age, the juvenile court in Japan makes an exceptional ruling. The girl, known as Girl A, will be placed in a correctional facility in Tochigi Prefecture. The severity of the crime justifies, in the court's eyes, setting aside the leniency usually afforded to children of her age. May 29, 2008. Authorities announced they will not request any further extensions. The girl, now a teenager, will remain institutionalized until the end of the extended period. Over the course of her follow-up, specialists note several difficulties: trouble with communication, rigid behavior, narrow and obsessive interests. Based on these observations, a diagnosis is made after the murder: Asperger's syndrome, a label that alone cannot explain the irreversible, but that helps illuminate part of her complex psychological profile. In 2013, nearly 10 years after the incident, the girl is released. She leaves with a new identity, in a new city, far from Sasebo. She now has a discreet job in an unnamed institution. No one really knows what became of her, and to be honest, officially, no one wants to know.